Hey guys, we're here with Rob, and he's from Semantic Mastery and Heavy Hitters Club. We're going to be going over, he has a new course called ScheMa-tic Architecture, and want to talk to him today. If you have questions, make sure you've given StreamYard permission with the link I've posted, and drop your questions, and we'll go over them live here. We're going to go over an overview of everything and just want to, talk to Rob, get his background story, and go from there. All right, Rob, you're good to go. Okay, you're good to go, bud.
Okay. Let me see where I can share my screen here. Share screen. Share. This one.
Let me see. You got it? I got it. There you go.
So you see ScheMa-tic Architecture here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm going to go through basically this course I was telling William before. Is that me getting feedback, or is that on your side?
Nope, I got it. We're good.
Okay. Basically, I did this course because people were asking me to help them with schema, right? And once I started digging into it, I found out that people aren't doing it this way. So I figured I might as well help people, because I'm of the mantra that the world's too big to try to hoard information and hoard clients. There's too many people out there to help. So I just figured I'd start to help people that can then help small businesses. Because growing up, both my parents were small business owners. So I have kind of a soft spot in my heart for the small businesses. And I figured all these SEOs out here are typically helping small businesses. So that's where this course came from. Because I knew basically as soon as it gets out there, it's going to be all over the place anyway. And I wanted to go through and make sure people are doing it right, because you can hurt and harm all at the same time. So I'll skim through these. As people have questions, you can either stop me during or as we go through. But basically, anyway, so one thing I want to go over is advanced schema is going to put you light years ahead of your competition. So a lot of people you hear, are doing schema, right? But they're doing just this basic generalized schema that you get from like a Yoast plugin, or, they search schema generators and everybody uses the same generator online, right? So where you separate yourself is when you do advanced schema. And this course is going to show you how to do advanced schema, how to build it out. Not just how to build it out, but how to do it simply, quickly, and then scalable. Because I think that's one of the big problems with schema. You can write it for one page, but then when you go to the next page, it's like starting all over, because you're sculpting something different, right? But before I go into it, I wanted to give everybody a little bit of a background about myself, who I am, where I come from, all that kind of stuff. So again, my name is Rob Beal. I am a biochemist by degree with a minor in economics. Who's an entrepreneur, a data analytical scientist. And so I got lots of nerd coming out all over the place. I'm a dad, husband, adventurer. And at the end of the day, basically, I'm just wired wrong, right? To be all those things just doesn't seem to make sense, right? So my day job, I work as a biochemist at a pharmaceutical company. And my background there is what led me into SEO. And I basically do a lot of data analytical, and I'm a data analyst scientist, and do investigational analysis and stuff like that. I started in the labs, and then I also moved into finding counterfeiting. So I was in the anti-counterfeiting department, which got me into graphical databasing, which at the end of the day, Google is nothing but a graphical database. And so I was sitting at home, and I was getting ready to have my two kids going to college all in the same time within 2 years of each other. I thought, damn, how can I figure out a way to make a little extra money? And I thought, well, this internet thing's not going away. So let me just, look around here. And I'm sure, as most people who get into the SEO market or industry, when they first started back in the day, ran across Alex Becker. So I ran around him to figure out what it was. Eventually stumbled onto the Semantic Mastery weekly show. Stumbled across a URL that they left exposed, because I'm that guy. I'm the data analytical guy, and I found the URL they left exposed for a drive stack. Completely reverse engineered the drive stack, added to it, and then pestered Marco with the results I was getting. hence RYS Reloaded was reborn, helped Marco relaunched that and launched that course. And that's kind of where I got started with SEO. And then I've just been diving into it ever since and combining the stuff I learned from my educational background with basically how Google's built. And once I saw the connection, to me, it's kind of like the Matrix, like Neo from the Matrix. I'm just wired weird. It goes together. So before we start here, though, I also want to put out a disclaimer. Just because I go through this doesn't mean you're automatically going to be an advanced coder by the end of us talking about this little webinar. You know, when I first started, I just wanted to get schema on the page like everybody else. I went to a generator, looked at it, and I was like, well, And then I went to schema.org, and then it opened a whole nother world because I saw exactly how that was coded, and it was coded directly to feed a graphical database. And I'm like, holy cow, this is like, to me, it just all made sense. I'm like, I can feed whatever I want through this. And I mean, tell Google whatever I want when I want and feed the bot before I even render the page. So then I saw the power of it, started messing around with it. Several years ago, I was on a call while we're traveling to Florida, and you know, I'm in the car on my laptop talking, and they're trying to do their on page. I'm like, dude, let me go write some schema around this thing. We'll just freaking wrap the whole website in schema, right? Yep. So the whole rest of the vacation, oh, Dad, you gonna wrap it in schema? So yeah, go wrap your schema, you nerd, right? So that was so that was just funny. I became the schema nerd on that vacation. Yep. But that's how I got into the advanced schema. And now I can get where if I get a site, I can write an advanced schema across most of the pages and do the whole thing probably in under an hour from start to finish. Now there's this disclaimer. I want to add a disclaimer to that as well. That's if I have the information needed for the values of the properties, right? You can't, and this goes to our discussion earlier about clients. You can't write schema if they don't tell you what the name of their business is, right? They're like, I want advanced schema, give it to me. I'm like, well, I need to know all this information first. Yeah. So that's a disclaimer. Once you have the information, then you can execute this stuff pretty quick. But one thing I do want to, there's a lot of people in this industry that don't take action, and it drives me crazy. Yep. And this is kind of like a little motto of mine. It's imperfect action beats perfect action every time. And you're going to see that right now through this presentation, because I put this together and it's not even done all the way today, right? Yeah. So if you got something, just execute, read the data that you're given, and then make changes as you go. That's pretty much, but don't get stuck looking at everything. So things I want to talk about today is basically why does advanced schema put you so far ahead of your competition? How do you implement that advanced schema without being some schema savant? And then also, how can you create page-specific schema in a matter of minutes, utilizing the way that I'm going to show you guys how to do this with blueprinting and the architecture that we got set up. So first one is why does the advanced schema, put you so far ahead of your competition? Schema is the big word right now, right? Everybody's rushing to have schema generators. They're you see in all these forums, what's the best plugin to put schema on my code, right? What plugin should I use? Is Rank Math better than Yoast for schema? Should I use the WooCommerce schema? And it's like,
they're all trash to me. Everyone I've seen is trash. They're going to give you basic schema at best.
They give you a basic schema, right? And then you got the other set. They're like, well, they think they need to add schema to it. And then you get the ones that say, well, I've implemented schema before and it doesn't move the needle, right?
Yeah.
You hear that all the time.
I hear that all the time.
So I'm going to try to shed some light on why that is. So if you look at this picture, does anything stand out? Is there anything that you see? Right? They're all identical.
Yep.
Okay. So when you think about all these websites out there, they're using either Yoast or Rank Math or the online schema generators to generate the schema. Every website that at least is putting it on there has the exact same thing, right? So it looks like this car lot to Google, right? The fact that we see nothing different, that's how Google sees all these sites have the exact same thing on them.
Yep.
But where's the first place your eyes go here? Right? Like you immediately see the red car.
Like the red lady in the Matrix.
Yes, exactly. Right? And Google sees the same thing. Google's at the end of the day, Google's nothing more than a computer coded to learn with zeros and ones. And if you can, as Marco always says, you show me a computer and I'll show you something I can teach. Because I can teach the bot, because I can code to fill the code out that it's trying to gather. Yep. And the more that you can fill that out and control your nodes and your entities online, the better you're going to be. Right? And you may not see huge jumps right out the gate, but as we're moving and moving and moving farther into the semantic web and the semantic entities and everything around the web, it's just going to become more and more important.
Yeah,
which is basically
whenever we do schema, we'll do like the onboarding form. They'll fill it out. We get all the information. Then once we take that, I mean, it takes with us. It only takes probably 2 weeks or less sometimes when Google picks up the schema, and you'll see a jump. And it's like, I've had people literally not be able to rank a site in 6 months. Then do the advanced schema, do all that stuff, the entities and all that, and then they start ranking. Just from crazy. The stuff that you're going to be going over. So,
and that's what I was saying is if you do the same thing, it's kind of like that saying: if you keep doing the same thing over and over and expect different results, I mean, you're crazy. If everybody keeps doing the exact same type of schema and expecting results, then they're gonna say schema doesn't work, right? Yeah. Those are the ones that aren't doing it right. You'll hear that for everything. This doesn't work. Drive stacks don't work. Schema doesn't work. It's not. I always say it's not the tool; it's the operator most of the time. Now, there's times
the monitor and the keyboard.
Yeah. Now, every once in a while, there are some tools out there that you want to steer clear of, because I don't care how you use them; they may not help you. I mean, there's always that. But 95% of the time, it's not the tool; it's the operator. All the way down to, I mean, you hear all kinds of stuff. Oh, they're spamming my site with GSA. It's not the GSA that's the problem. It's what they're doing with the tool to crush your site. You can still rank websites with GSA if you know what you're doing, right? I don't use any of those tools, but I'm just saying people are really good at it, and it works.
I say that crap all the time because people be like, drive stacks and G stacks don't work. I'm like, no, the G stack you did don't work. The G stack I do definitely works,
Yeah. So to go back to what you were saying, and I stole something from your group today. Right? I'm going to probably butcher your name, but you know how to say his name?
No, Frolin is actually.
Frolin.
Yeah. Frolin's actually a friend of mine. So.
Okay. So he posted in your group today how about he added schema to his product page, right?
Yeah.
And he posted this template. And that's what I confused this crap out of you today, Frolin. I apologize. I was kind of being sarcastic and goofing around. And obviously the joke didn't go very well because I confused you.
Yeah, that's Frolin. Frolin Joseph Chavez, yeah.
So, but here's two search consoles, right? And I'm going to let you kind of guess when we started implementing schema and branding on these sites, right? I mean, it's just so obvious. Right in here is where I added advanced schema along. And people ask me all the time, well, if you just do schema, does that change anything? I'm like, I'm going to tell you right up. I can't 100% tell you that only schema is going to do something all by itself, because I never do just schema by itself. Schema is just part of the overall branding of my entity. And it's a big part because it ties everything together. But right here is where we started doing advanced schema on this. And this one here, the top one, that's a e-com store. We started doing advanced schema here and did a huge branding campaign. Their web people right here turned off the schema and the stuff that we worked on by turning off the plugin.
I love it.
And you can see where we turned it back on.
I've had clients literally go, and I hate dealing with this, but you have a client, they have another programmer and they hate the schema and, oh, you're doing it wrong and this and that. And it's like, you do realize your rankings are up, the traffic's up, the keywords are shooting out that, flying out of the racehorses, and then they take it off, and this same shit happens every time. Drop. Yeah.
So you can see right here. And what's funny, it's hard to see on here, but this is right here when everybody's complaining about updates on e-com websites. Yeah, I'm like, well, I'm not seeing anything. I mean, I hate to say it. I'm sure some people are getting hit, but it's not. A lot of the new updates is because people's brands aren't tight. Yeah, that's the thing. So you can see here And you can see here where Frolon said this exact same thing. When you do it right and you stack this stuff, it works like crazy. Because you can even, I mean, stacking schema is a thing too. So the second one is, how do you implement it without being a schema savant? So just real quickly, you don't have to be a wizard to do schema. You don't have to like know everything about schema. And I'm going to try to simplify it. And there's a whole section in the course. It's basically my 30-minute how to do schema for dummies.
Yep.
Right? Is at the end of the day, schema has three things. There's 3 types and 4 coding elements. That's it. And yeah, that is all there is. Okay. Your types is you got the schema type, the property, and the value. When you boil it down simply, that's all it is. You got your type. So I did some examples over here as a restaurant. Okay. Each type then has different properties, right? And the properties over here are the blue. And then you have values that go in for those properties. At the end of the day, that's all there is. And then you just continue to stack and add that stuff together. And each one of the types, properties, or values, you must put in quotes. So that's like just the high level. If you find an error,
overview, overview, yeah.
Usually you're missing that or not, right? The next part is you got your brackets, your squiggly brackets or whatever I call them, and commas. Basically, you use the square brackets when you're wanting to add more than one value to a property. Square bracket, here's the values separated by a comma. When you want to add another schema type to a value of a property, then you use the squiggly bracket. So then this whole section here becomes the value of address. And then this address then has all these sub properties that are part of the postal address, which you're telling them is the address. At the end of the day, that's all that schema is. Yep. You utilize this when you want multiple values, you got your properties and your values, and then you got, when you add another type for a value, you use your squiggly brackets, right?
Yep.
That's a real fast deal, but right. But nobody likes to start from scratch. So just to make it simple, it's always best to start with a template. There's tons of templates that I add in there. You can get templates all over the web. You can find somebody who's got some crazy good schema and just copy their schema off a web page. Schema.org actually has templates to at least get you started if you're starting. Where that comes into play is most places you can find local business schema online for templates. You can find, but if you're trying to do like product schema, there's not a whole lot of templates out there for real advanced product schema. There's not a whole lot of templates out there for some of the other types of schema as common to find, right? So you can then go to like schema.org, get their little template, and then start building into it using the little coding thing there. And then the next one is, so how do you create this advanced schema in it? Like I was saying, I can do a page in a matter of minutes. And I put in a product example in here just for basically because of that post this morning. So most people say they don't have the time to code out every single page, right? I've heard you talk about how sometimes you got 40 to 60 pages of schema that you write for a page. But what if you can code that in just a couple minutes, right? And the way that I go about doing that is utilize node referencing. Most people, this is where it gets a little bit, it can get confusing. So I'm going to go a little bit slow. And if you have questions, ask here. But everybody talks about the ad ID, and I see it discussed all the time. Part of this is Google probably caused the problem. When they updated their structured data guidelines, they talked about every local business needs an ad ID, right? That's the only property they said needs an ad ID. And most people just thought, okay, local business, ad ID, let me throw my CID in there. Let me throw an MRID. Like they didn't leverage it for what it can be used for. What I want you to understand is, and I used a postal address as an example for a specific reason. Everybody's used to seeing like a local business, and then they have the little ad ID, and then they put a URL to something in there. That's normally what you see on most people's advanced schema. Or schema in general. They just add the ad ID for basically usually the local business. But you can sign any schema type can be given an ad ID. So even this postal address can be given an ad ID. Locations can be given an ID node reference, right? So we need to separate ad ID meaning only for local businesses. Add ID is just a node reference in the schema vocabulary, is what that boils down to. So each one of these nodes that you see like in this picture could have an ID reference. So if you're here and you want to reference over to another node, you can and pull that information into the schema, and it codes it out for you on its own. You don't have to worry about all your squiggly lines and commas and stacking it manually. Okay. Here's an example. So if this is an address, right, and I gave it this node identifier, if I want to now, and I just took out a little piece of a local business schema, if I want to reference his address, instead of having to worry about copying and pasting this entire section here and putting it in here and making sure I got the commas in the right place and I got the, you know, the closed brackets because you're adding extra brackets, I can literally reference this node that's on the page, and it'll pull every bit of this in and fill that out for you and do all the stuff for you automatically. In the, that's how Google will read those. So what this tells Google is my address is at this node ID. It goes and finds that node ID on your page and pulls everything in for you. Wow. So you don't have to worry about, and this becomes more powerful. I'll show you on the product schema next. I just want to use this example, and I specifically chose address because everybody thinks about local business having an ID. And I wanted to break that train of thought that only local businesses have ad IDs, because this is how you're going to build out massively advanced schema quickly. Okay, so here's an example. This little script right here. This is a service page for an example pest control site. I guess the site on here is an example. This is what I wrote for the service page of a pest control site. That's all the schema was right there. That's it. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 lines. So I wrote 10 lines of schema, right? But what I did, this provider, you see how I'm referencing the local business node right here? Well, I say that. I'm referencing this node for the provider and this node for the brand. Okay, so when I throw this information on my service page, and then I can throw underneath of it my local business schema and my brand schema. You just stack them even in the page. Google will read this and they'll go through and say, okay, this is my service. You can see here, I gave this service even its own ID. So if I want to reference it later, I can real simply. Here's the name of the service. Here's the URL to where the service is. Who's the provider, right? This one line right here becomes your 60 pages of business schema in that one line. Awesome. If you just reference it. This line here for your brand, right? Because this example here, they had local business locations, plus they had a brand that was just an organizational level. It didn't have a location. So I leveraged that by they pulled in the local business information for the provider, right? So then I'm pointing to the local business GMB data, and then I'm pointing to the brand, which is their organizational schema, all in this, and it pulls that information in. So when you put this in the testing tool, when I take those other two blueprints and slap them in there, this ended up being, I don't know, several hundred lines of code.
What usually happens, the worst part of it doing it, you know, manually is because you're having to sit there and make sure and go through every single reference, without, you know, in this way, it shortens that down. So that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So instead of in this little section right here, having to take your 60 pages of local business schema and put it in there and make sure no commas get messed up, make sure it doesn't invalidate any of the other commas or the brackets and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
You can reference it with one line, and
that's
Google
awesome.
Pulls it automatically in for you. So where that's powerful is if they add another service page, all I have to do is I go in and change the name of the service, the URL of the service, the audience, and maybe the service type. And I want to say here.
Yeah, that's just a little bit. That's not, you know.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because that's unique to that page.
Yeah.
And then I just put that new information on the page. I copy the local business blueprint and the branding blueprint on there. Boom, pulls it in advanced schema, and that's it. Like, awesome. So in the course, you'll see me actually, I'll pretend, right? I'll say, okay, let's go through this as if they just added a new page and I have my blueprints in place. How quickly can I get this onto a page? And from the time I hit record and told you what I was doing and doing it, I had it on the page and in the schema testing tool validating in 5 minutes. So, and then here's the example for product. So this is where you can add even more information to your stuff in a product, and this doesn't have it all. And I want to caveat or put a caveat in here. The templates that are in the course, and even when I'm going through here, there's even more stuff that you can pull in. I didn't pull in every possible value that you could for the schema types, right? Like local business, there's hundreds of them that you could put in there. You could put the founder, you could put the co-founders, you could put other organizations they're related to. Like, so there's a lot of different properties that you can put in there. So that's where there's a little bit of art to this. You know, you may not need all of that for, you know, just a local business. You just want to go with their services, their locations, and their things. You may not need to stack in the provider information, the founder information, or not provider, the founder information, the doctor information, right? Where that can come into play is if you're doing medical clinics, and you can put in there who's the founder, and then underneath founder, you can start putting their degrees, where they went to college. So then you start fully validating all the entities. But here's an example for a product. So for this product, I've got the name, the image of the product, description, the SKU number. You can see here for brand, I'm going to be referencing the local business or who makes the stuff. So this could be your brand on who's selling it. So right here on a product page, now you can with that one line inject every bit of your organization into the whole product schema. You can, so the other ones you can put in here. So let's say your brand is selling a different manufacturer. You could write a manufacturer blueprint, and you could add here manufacturer, right? And then do the same thing, and you could add ID. So insert reference to the manufacturer right here. So then you can pull in the brand, the manufacturer, and all that stuff. And then for every new product you have, once you have your blueprint in place, all you change is these few things that change for the product, and the rest of that you pull in the brand, you pull in the manufacturer, you pull in all the other information you want just from the nodes that you're referencing, right?
Yep.
So that's where, when I saw that product, and I'm like, this is going to be perfect for that later, because then you can do the offer. So this may be the brand of the product. Then down here for the offer, who's the seller? That could be your e-commerce store online now becomes the seller of this brand. And even in schema, now you're interlinking their brand with your e-commerce brand, right? At a bot level. So that was for the product one. And then, like I said, I didn't get these finished. So I'm going to jump over to the actual course sales page just to show you what all's in there. What I have is there's 4 modules, several bonus modules, and then I threw in a whole bunch of other just free stuff to help out. Just because at the end of the day, like my goal is to help other people online make a living at it and make money and help, at the end of the day, help local businesses keep their shops open and keep, you know, customers happy and keep showing up and stuff like that. So module 1 is just, I'm calling it an introduction. There's actually courses out there where that's the whole course that people are charging. Like, I think the one I saw was like $497 for a course, and it basically covered that right there, right? This goes into more detail than most that I've seen. Now I'm going to say I haven't taken all the courses, so I can't, you know, point to any particular one or call anybody out. But this is where even a lot of advanced schema type stuff ends, right? They stack schema the old-fashioned way, where they rewrite the entire coding. And when I say rewrite, they copy and paste it across all kinds of sheets and try to constantly be merging all these templates together, and then, you know, cross their fingers and hope no commas were missed, or they got to go digging, right? And use the testing tool to find it. So that's just in the introduction. I go through just an overview of schema real quick, how you build it, how you mirror your schema to mirror what your website's saying, so they marry up. Because at the end of the day, you want your on-page and your bot level stuff to marry up. It goes over how do you stack the different types of schema the old-fashioned way. How do you then start adding entities? So we talk about the nodes we have. How do you add other nodes that are already known to Google into your stuff, right? So that's covered just in the introduction. The second part is I go through like the nodal referencing. How do you, first, what is it? How do you name them? How do you reference them? How do you then leverage it, which I covered real quickly here. So this is how do you begin to name your own nodes, right? On the different places, how do you choose what you want to name? And then how do you leverage it later? And then you can even merge schema types by doing correct referencing. So you can make up your own, I don't say make up your own, but you can take a local business or a website and organization schema and make it one schema type in schema.org. It'll pull in Google as actually one type. And then the third node is blueprinting. How do I build the blueprints? How do I know what blueprints to build? I go through how do you do blueprinting, and I do an example of an organization, a local business. I do like a top level category page. So your top level pages, and then all the sub services are listed. And I go through individual service pages. I think there's even some others I cover. I just didn't list them all. And then I go through how do you build out? So now that you have your blueprints in place, how do you start to use those to make advanced schema just by all the node referencing and stacking? In these examples, these are the ones that I wrote down, but I do some service level examples, the top level category, local business example, and then organization. So I go through step by step how I made those. And then the last one is, it kind of is a challenge to whoever's taking this. Don't stop just with what you learn, because I'm teaching you here how to fish, not just giving you a fish, right? I don't want you to just have a template that you just replicate every time for people, right? I'm teaching you how do you take those, expand them when needed, contract them when needed, because there may be times you don't need all that information for a company. Yep. And then by doing that, you can start to build your own and hone and craft your own schema to what you feed the bot on each individual page by learning how to build out your own schema, basically, instead of just taking the ones I have, building and changing the way you blueprint them, right? So this is teaching you how to do it, not just plug your thing in here and go put it on your page like every other plugin does, right? Yep. So then you can truly start to craft your own stuff. And then the bonus modules I threw in, some of these I threw in after my beta launch to some of our members. Yep. They started asking me questions. So I did a coding crash course that this basically goes the intro. How do you add multiple property to values? How do you add actually multiple types as multiple values? And how do you start to do that? This is my 30-minute scripting for dummies type thing. And I had one guy say that he learned more from that 30-minute course than his entire time trying to learn it on schema.org and any other things. Because I'm just, like I said at the beginning, I'm wired weird. So I see the way the coding works. And it just, to me, I can look at my schema and be like, oh, you're missing a comma. Like it just, I don't know why. But
it's interesting because like the guy that writes the guy that works with us that does the schema, he's an engineer as well. So
yeah, it's just wired to see it that way.
Wired, like, you know. So
yeah. So and
and when I started training him, showing him, I literally gave him the schema, and I said, I want you to do this. I'm thinking, you know, dude's probably going to come back to me the next day and think, you know, dude, this is like too fucking hard. And he literally, I came back to him the next day and I say, so how's that schema? He's like, oh, I already did it.
Yeah.
I said, what do you mean you did it? And I said, show it to me. And he showed it to me. And then I went through the schema and everything and checking out, is there any errors or nothing? Not a damn error. And I was like, how did you do this? He's like, oh, I do JavaScript coding and all that shit. I was an engineer in school.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, awesome. You know, so he's amazing. So
yeah. So that's what I'm trying to do here is not teach us all how to be engineers. Teach us how to write advanced schema
without being one.
Without being one, right? I'm trying to like take the fear away from it, just like trying to take the fear away from being scared of Google. At the end of the day, Google,
when you first look at it, it's like, what? You think you're like Neo and you know, Matrix, because all you see is these lines of code. And that's why I used to explain to people, even with web design, they don't necessarily, in web design, Google don't see the nice pictures and the layout. They see all the code in the background.
Yeah, this is what Google sees, this part here, right? We see all this pretty stuff, but this is what, and when people look at it, they're like, what in the hell? But if you break that down, it's just
it's information about your business.
Yes,
it's all that stuff.
And it's very structural. You got, here's the property, the description's the property, here's the value. You got to make sure the properties and values always have quotes around them, because that's what note signifies to Google, this is something. And then if you want to add more than one something, you put the square brackets. If you want to add another schema type as to something, you put squiggly brackets. That's pretty much how it boils down. And then you just got to keep track of the squiggly brackets by using something that helps you code, that kind of keeps the colors. When you click on this one, it shows you that one's blue.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I do templates. These are just, I named a few. I did organization templates, local business templates, product templates, some service templates, a fax template, blog. I gave the template that I used throughout the whole course where I was building out the nodes and showing. That whole template's in there. And then that service one I showed as an example for the pest control, that entire template's in there. The organization blueprint, the local business, I think you had 2. So it shows how you can stack the organizations, 2 local businesses, all the services, that entire blueprint's in there. And then the next one is, and sometimes I think things are just known. Somebody said, okay, so how do I put this on my site? I'm like, oh, I just thought that was a given, right? Like,
no,
to me, that's
you have to almost break it down. It's like with me with Google My Business, and some people you got to go, this is what Google My Business is.
Yeah.
Literally explain it to them, because a lot of people don't. They don't have a clue. There's like, where do I put this at?
Yeah. Often we forget. It's kind of like that thing, you can't see the forest because of the trees. We're so close to the work, we don't see that it's like 90% of the popular. Yeah.
And it's done. You're like, what?
Yep. So I go through how to implement it, how to actually put it on your site, how you would do it if it's an organization page, how you would stack your blueprints. If it's a local business, how you stack your blueprints. If it's a services, how do you stack those blueprints to make sure you're getting the appropriate schema? I thought it came through when I was just showing it in the testing tool, but obviously it didn't. So then I actually just dummied up a website and showed different pages as if it was a service or an organization, put them to the testing tools. You can see exactly how I put them on the page to make it spit out in the testing tool, the advanced crazy schema that you can do. Then you can see this on the testimonials page. There's several.
Jordan Pierce is in the house.
Several people went through this, and I even had one guy. I won't read all testimonials. You guys can see them on the sales page.
Did you finally convince Mr. Jordan Pierce that schema works? Because he's always going back and forth.
Yeah, he's always he likes to stir stuff up. Let's put it that way.
Oh, I know.
He likes to get that paint stick and stir. Right. But yeah, he stir
the pot. He's like, I remember with me and Terry, he was like, thank you for telling me about schema. Then the next 30 minutes later, he's like, I'm throwing my fucking laptop out the door.
Yeah. So but yeah, he was even how I well, we can look at what he said. I won't.
I mean, if you look at what you just showed, I mean, I wish I had known this, before we started doing the schema, because it's really, I mean, honestly, it's hard the way we do it, so, but it is what it is.
This will simplify it for your guys once they build those blueprints, because you're basically making little modules. It's like taking a web page builder and now you got modules, and depending on what you need on the page, you just put the appropriate modules. Boom, there's your schema.
Awesome.
You're basically modularizing your schema, I guess would be another way to think of it. Blueprinting, modularizing to put it in the website design thought process. I'm not sure schema or Jordan's going to go become a schema savant by any means.
No.
But he is back to testing with it and testing on some sites. And I might even talk him into testing Google Stacks again. So we'll see.
That's awesome.
He's even stirring stuff up about Google Stacks all the time too.
Yeah, I see. I mean, he tests a lot, and that's one reason I do like him, because he tests. I can't stand when people say stuff don't work and they don't test it. They just say it don't work. Well, have you ever tested it? No, I bought it on Fiverr. So okay, yeah, really.
Well, that's like when we did the RYS course, right? The Mark and I launched several years ago. We'd get people saying, well, this doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, send me your stack, right? So I can look at it. And it was definitely bought on Fiverr for $10. I'm like, what do you like? What was sometimes it makes me think, okay, help me understand this. What was your expectations when we charge X and they charge, X minus 500 or so, like something crazy? Yeah. I mean, it's like when you go to the parking lot, right? And up front, at the front of the parking lot, they got the real nice cars. But you drove back to the back where they're getting ready to get put on the tow truck to go to auction and bought that, and then wonder why it didn't work. I'm just like, what the heck, but yeah, we get that all the time too. So
I got a couple of questions in here for you. If you're ready to answer some of these.
I got two more things.
Keep going. You got bonuses.
I got three more things that I'm throwing in just to help understand it. So this is a presentation I did at a conference. It's the POFU, I think is what they call it, POFU. It's a Semantic Mastery Conference. Okay. I did a presentation. Instead of trying to go through explaining that in these things, I just threw out in that whole presentation. It's over an hour long where I break down graphical database, what it is, what is a graphical database, why it is like it is, how it works, how Google's exactly that. If you look at Google's patent, it mirrors a graphical database directly. And then how do we leverage that both with ScheMa, and then how do we leverage it outside of ScheMa, but in bigger picture across your brand entity across the web. So now how do you build all your nodes on the web versus to match up the schema that you're putting on your page? So that entire thing I threw in there as a bonus. I'm throwing in this entire SEO Shield training because I discuss it in the Unmasking Google. This is basically the online version of what you're doing with ScheMa. So this is feeding the bot, ScheMa is directly. This is feeding the bot from different places on the web, so that when they search for you, they see that you have all your social profiles. They see that you have all your different things. So this is where
your entities and everything.
Yeah. So when we talk about that, so this is a whole training where I go through how to do an entity loops, how to do your ROS drive stack, and how to do your syndication network. Now, I'm going to, before you get in there, this doesn't show you everything on how to build a drive stack and how to put stuff on a page. This is more of a high level thing. Just so high level. Yeah. I'm not going in and making during this training saying create document, now go to file. Like that's not what this is. This is how exactly it all works and why it works the way Google's structured. It goes together with the whole ScheMa thing, and then this and this. So, and then on top of that, it's not even on the sales page yet, but I just decided right before we got on this call, I started in doing SEO by doing pay per lead. I know a lot of your guys are in rank and rent stuff.
Yep.
I'm just going to throw it. So I was telling you before, I did a course. I called it Pay Per Lead Profits. I created it a while back. It has some of this stuff in there, but then it basically goes through what did I do start to finish from the first time I tried to do a website until I got my first client that's paying for my kids' college, doing rank and rent. I don't do clients. I sell them the call. I have a call rails thing. I say, this is the number of calls I got, send them an invoice, they send me a check. I never talk to them.
Awesome.
It's the perfect way. So I'm throwing that in there as well.
Awesome.
So instead of selling
you're doing a pay per lead course per se that you did, you're going to throw that in there. It's pay per lead profits.
Yeah. So this as well. These are the modules, right? I said, why did I pick pay per lead? How do I do niche selection? How do you handle calls? How do I do keyword selection? How do I set up money sites, site structure? And I wouldn't say this is like when you buy a course only about GMBs. What I've covered in this course isn't going to be every possible scenario that you could do in GMB. But this is basically, it goes through everything I did to rank the sites that are helping pay for my kids' college. I'm going to throw that in for free for anybody that buys this ScheMa as well, because there's plenty of pay per lead courses out there. There's no point in flooding the market and trying to sell another one, because at the end of the day, like we were talking about, there's nothing new under the sun.
Correct.
This probably regurgitates what a lot of people already teach. I've actually never taken an online SEO course or even purchased one before. Yep. I'm kind of the old school self-taught nerd guy. I find
that's pretty much the same way I learned. That's the way I learned, and that's how I got started. Not once, I've never bought a course. So
I've never bought any courses. I threw this one together thinking, oh, I'll help people out. And I'm like, holy crap, there's a whole bunch of these courses out there.
Oh,
forget it. I'm not in the market to just try to sell courses.
So you in the rank and rent part, you get into pay per lead, niche selection, call handling, keyword selection, money site setup, site structure, GMB organization, entity creation, content tuning, site mirroring, which I deal with some. GMB leverage, feeding the bots, link building, traffic. Yeah, that's awesome. That's, I mean,
Yeah,
in the rank and rent, with our rank and rent partners, we deal with a lot of that. How do you, I mean, from anything, how do you handle calls? I mean,
yeah.
how do you sell the lead? How do you, because I literally was just talking to someone yesterday. She has, I believe, 2 or 3 sites already ranking, and she cannot get leads. She calls them and they flake out on her, you know, and she doesn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah,
you know, it's one of the frustrating things, because you got something that can potentially bring in $3,000-4,000 a month, and it's like no one wants it, you know.
well, here's the way I did it. Just a real quick and short story. So I put it in CallRail, right? I tracked how many calls I was getting over a 3-month period, and I just sent an email and said, look, I'm getting 160 calls for plumbing every month. Do you want it or not? And I sent that to all the plumbing places. The first person that called, I went and met with them. They were like, and frame it like this, right? You're not Home Advisor. Okay, here's something you've got to set yourself apart with when you're doing rank and rent or pay per lead.
Yep.
They hear that, and they hear Home Advisor. I'm just telling you straight up, that's what they hear. And Home Advisor, if you don't know, is horrible. So when they sell these businesses a call, they sell that same call to like 6 other businesses in the same area at the same time, and it becomes a rush on who can call them back faster, and then who can give the lowest price. Because now this person who went to Home Advisor has 7 contractors all calling them, and so they're like, oh, well, how much? Well, so-and-so is going to do it for 500. What do you got, right? And position yourself where these are unique, right? So they're the only person that's getting this lead, right? And don't bill them for just crap spam calls. I pay somebody, I think it's like 5 cents a call or 10 cents a call to listen to my calls. And if it's a telemarketer or Home Advisor trying to sell them, I don't bill them for that. I only bill them for legitimate phone calls. And I've had the same person paying me every month without even asking a question for 3 years now, because I set it up like that. And if you over deliver like that, they're coming to me now and want me to rank other stuff for them. So that's just a way to position yourself when you're trying to sell these leads. Be sure to distinguish yourself from Home Advisor.
Yeah, because a lot of them, Home Advisor, Angie's List, all them people.
Yeah, they're all the same. And when they hear you say, do you want to buy this lead? That's the first thing they think.
What they think of, yeah.
Whether you say it or not, if you say, I'll put it in writing. These only go to you. These are exclusive leads to you only. And I'm not even going to, and then just charge them. For me, I'm probably undercharging. I'll just be honest. Charge them what Home Advisor charges them. And they're like, hold on. So let me get this straight. You're going to charge me the same as Home Advisor does, only send it to me, and then not bill me for spam calls. They're like, how can I not say yes to that?
Yep.
And that's your sales proposition.
Awesome.
So for those needing to sell calls, I know that's not what we're on here for, but that's the way to do it.
No, I mean, a lot of my audience is in the rank and rent too, so, and I'm in the rank and rent, so
yeah, it works every time as far as that part goes. You make it a win-win.
Yeah, I'll send this out to all of my rank, because I already had a message. I have a couple of them on here messaging me, the rank and rent people.
You said there were some questions?
Yeah, so Delaney, she's in rank and rent. She said, what do you mean by semantic web?
Okay, so semantic web means, so Google, we all think about there's pages and there's links on the page, right? And what semantic is, a graphical database. So for example, my name is Rob, and I'm wearing a white hat, a black shirt, and I have on headphones, right? If you just put that all in one little card for me, then I can't semantically relate all those things. So if the police need to file a report and they're like, okay, I need to see all the people that were wearing white hats and a black shirt at, whatever time, if all that's just under Rob Beal and not white hat, black shirt, and those are just linked to me, semantically related, then it's harder to basically mine that data, right? And where that comes from is, so like I said before, I worked in anti-counterfeiting a lot, and this is basically how cops do their job, right? When you see something come out, right? You'll see, okay, we're looking for a red truck, maybe in the 1985 range, that had a broken window and somebody that looked around 6'5" and, you know, black hair, right? Those are all individual data points. So what you do, what a graphical database does is they say, I want to see everybody, step one, bring everybody back that's got black hair. And they bring that back. Now that we have that file, show me any of those that have been seen or linked to red truck. And now it brings those back. So now you've got basically the person and the truck. They're separate things, but they're semantically related. So now that whole thing comes back. And now you throw in there that's about 6'5", then only those people come back, right? So you slowly, based on all the semantic relationships between the things on the web, Google then can hone in on what they're looking for and serve up the best answer. That's the easiest way I've come to try to explain it, outside of thinking about web stuff, is thinking about, like, you know, in the real world, if you're trying to describe somebody, you know, you're going to say, I want to first know all the people that had on red shirts. Here's that pool of people. Now out of them, how many were male? Okay, here's that pool. Okay, out of them, how many were 6'3"? Okay, here's that pool. Out of that, how many were blue-eyed? 1. You took all the different data points and slowly, that were all semantically related, and then you got to the answer. That's how a graphical database is built. I go into more detail in that unmasking Google thing that kind of talks a little bit more about it, goes into the math behind it and stuff like that. But that's the short answer.
Basically, the big overview of it, pretty much.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got here. Okay. Yeah, Froland, I'm melting.
I told him this morning I'm gonna melt his face. I think that's when I confused him. He thought I was trying to sell him something in your thing. He didn't realize that we were talking tonight.
Yeah. I told him when he messaged me, I said, yeah, I'm actually going to be talking to him. He doesn't realize how many people I actually talk to. It's like a lot of people. It's like I talk to Chase almost every day. Talk to Chris once in a while, a couple of these people. Hi, I'm from Bangladesh. I always follow your tutorials. Awesome,
thank you,
Razal. Froland again. I'm definitely light years ahead now. Can I be another light years if I use these schemas on JPEG images for backlinks that I'm creating for my clients?
Yeah, you can. So here's the thing. Your goal in the semantic web, right? If we're going to I'll kind of tie these together, is to semantically relate all these things. Okay. So a lot of times people ask about, does adding EXIF data work? I'll use this as a good example. Does adding EXIF data work on an image? My short answer is yes, right? It does work to some extent. But if you have an image that literally only has latitude and longitude and nothing else in it, is that going to be near as effective, right? Because for any of you guys that have Adobe Bridge, I think Bridge is the software, take a picture with your iPhone with all the stuff turned on, and then load that into Adobe Bridge and look at the properties, and you look at how much data is embedded in there. So the best thing you can do for images is get one that's natively done, doing with the images, because it has all that other semantic information in there. It tells you what phone, what model, what was the shutter speed. I've even seen images because I took them when I was in the car, tell me what was the velocity that I was traveling with the image. So all that metadata is built into all this stuff. So if you can then semantically relate that image using schema to your business, and if that image happened to be taken 3 miles from your business, now you've semantically related your business to an area 3 miles away. And that's a good way to start to expanding your reach or your radius of showing up in maps even. It's a good way to expand your centroid, so to speak. That's just one example. But yeah, when you start semantically relating all these things, and you can do image schema, and you can say, here's the image, who took the image, right? If you look at image schema, you can say who was the photographer, and the photographer could be your local business. And that blueprint of your local business, now the photographer of this local business provides this service at this location, and So short answer is yes. Long answer is it's up to your imagination.
I would specifically want to deploy these schemas off the page, integrating the schema at copyright or the comment properties of a JPEG.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. In the schema, you can say who's the copywriter of an image. Like that's one of the things you can put. Now, if I'm understanding your question, you can't just copy schema and put it. You can't just. So if you go to an image and right-click properties on your computer, and you just paste that into the comment section, Google is not going to read that as JavaScript. It's expecting text there, so it's going to read it just as a wall of text, right?
Yeah. So
just as an FYI, just putting that big wall of text. I mean, it'll pick up all the words, but it's not going to parse it like it would when it's expecting JSON-LD schema. Now, I mean, there's ways to inject schema into images and all kinds of stuff out there like that that I've seen. I don't know enough on how to do that stuff to basically tell or guide, but you can inject schema into an image. So even if you just run an image URL, it'll pick up all that information as well. I don't know how to do it. So, I mean, that's probably going to be the next question. How do I do that? But that part I don't know. I know it's possible and I've seen people do it, but I don't know how to tell you to actually do it. But you can inject it to where actually Google will read it when you scan that URL of that image as well.
Let's see what else we got here. Got a new nickname for her, Neo Bill.
Oh, there you go.
They would call you Neo. Let's see. He is the one.
Yeah. I always tell my wife, that's what I felt like when I do this online stuff.
I literally had him send me something. He says that you're a fucking genius. Where do I find these guys? Are you in some kind of secret cult?
Yeah, I try to stay offline as much as possible, to be honest with you guys. Yeah, like if you look at my Facebook page, I think I was on Facebook for probably 4 years doing all this stuff before I even added a personal picture. And I only added a personal picture because Facebook threatened to delete my whole page because it thought I was a spam page.
That's probably the best thing for you. I mean, I just got my I have like 5 or 6 accounts because what happens is I get my accounts blocked for whatever reason. And I mean, for instance, just by posting, something that says, hey, learn schema, I have people that just, report it. It's spam. It's not spam, dude. I don't know what your problem is, but whatever.
Yeah. Facebook doesn't like me.
Yeah. You can't really say too much, anything politically.
Yeah, I don't do anything on Facebook at all except for SEO.
Yeah, exactly. Because the moment you go against the quote unquote narrative that everybody's trying to push, then it's, you're evil and whatever.
I can't even run ads on Facebook anymore. And I don't even know why. I was banned permanently, never to be allowed to run ads again. And I still have no clue why. I hadn't run ads for a year.
That's insane.
And the only really ads I'd run was literally we took an old school bus, converted it into an RV. And I ran ads to sell it. I'm like, how is that against terms of service? I'm like, what? Whatever.
Yeah, I don't ever get it. It's like lately I've been getting messages saying, hey, you've been disabled from posting in your groups, yet I can still post in my groups. I think Facebook is just drunk anymore half the time way they act.
Yep.
That guy has software that injects it. Do you use software on any level, or is it all just,
You mean for writing the schema?
Yeah.
I mean, you can use, so what I was saying before, I'm not saying Yoast is bad. Well, Yoast is. Let me restate that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying schema generators are bad.
Yeah.
Right? It's better than nothing. But if you're doing the exact same thing that every other person is doing, how do you stand out at all, right?
Yeah, how do you differentiate yourself?
If every website's here, and then every website puts on the same schema, all we've done is say we're all here, and now we're all here. Like, we didn't do anything different. So, but if this website puts on this much schema, and I put on this much, now we differentiate. And that's where the magic comes in. That's where those generators aren't good. You can use the generator to make at least get started and do your blueprints. And even if you just use the generator to make a local business blueprint, a service blueprint, and a review blueprint, right? And don't even add extra stuff to those, but now use the ability to node reference those and just stack those smaller schemas. You're already bumped up a little bit above other people. If you think like that, you can use those to get started, But once you see the power of what you're doing, you'll start to want to make your blueprints a little bit better each time. And then once you have them, you can switch them out, right? You still have to, this isn't a magic bullet where I can just hit a button and now all my schema is on my page. You still have to create the blueprints. But now instead of creating a blueprint for every single page on your site, you create the main building blocks and then you just put them where they're needed and it fills out the rest of it for you.
Honestly, I mean, really, it's the same thing as, you know, SEO and working with clients. One of the reasons why I even told you I work with agencies, but because what happens is inevitably they're going to say, well, I'm number 1 or 2, but I'm still not getting phone calls, or this is not happening, or whatever. And it's like, for one of the things I learned with Russell Brunson, and I still agree so wholeheartedly with a lot of what goes on in ClickFunnels, is the fact he's like, unless your hook is right, unless your story is right, unless your offer is right, your sales are going to suck.
Yep.
You know, because if you don't have all these things right, it's not going to be good. What distinguishes you from everybody else's schema? If you're doing it the same way everybody else is doing, and just like the red lady from Metrics or the red car that you showed, if you have the same car, same look, same everything, you're not going to look any different. Google's not going to go, oh, there's Rob, you know, there's Rob. Hey, look at him. Awesome. And they'll hone in on that one person versus everybody else. And people just don't get it. So, yeah.
Google is just a database and it's programmed to fill itself out at the end of the day. So if you can feed, so if you have a bot, right? Google's a bot, it's out reading web pages. And it's constantly wanting new data. It's got an insatiable appetite. And if you can feed it more data than the next guy, you win. I mean, that's just how it works. As long as you don't feed it the wrong data, right? Because you can mess yourself up if you start to semantically unrelate your stuff from things, right? So, I mean, if people know exactly what the semantic web is and how it works, you can really use it for some bad, I mean, you can go to the dark side, so to speak. Yeah. And flip people's semantics. I mean, you can flip their semantic relevance online. So
I actually prefer the dark side per se, but that might be a bad thing, but we won't go into that. Let's see what else. Unfortunately, nobody can be told what the matrix is. That is very much true. This is one of my partners, I believe. Nope. Yep, partner. So I want to start off on rank math so I can use different schema on each landing of the location pages, so you can create it and embed it on each page.
Yeah, I don't use rank math. I honestly don't use a whole lot of WordPress, so I'm not a big plugin guy. The ones that I do, I use SEO Ultimate Pro is the plugin that I do use. It's got a whole crap ton of features I don't even use, but I can control on one page, right? I can go in and change the header code on every single page from one screen. So then I can easily, if I need to make a change, I can then go in and change all the pages instead of having to open each individual page, go to the bottom, import the code, like that type of thing. I don't know how rank math is. It may do that or may not. Ultimately, you just want to find a plugin where you can control, where you can basically inject on a per page level. Would be my suggestion for a plugin at the end of the day. So when I go through site implementation in the course, I do not, I don't even have a plugin on that website, because you can put it when you're doing a post, you can just go to text editor and you can insert it into the body of that post as well. And it'll still render and it'll still work just fine. And the code will all go through and all that kind of stuff. So you can do it that old school way and just put it into each post, go into the text editor of that post and stick it in there in an HTML code. But the easiest would be to find a plugin that gives you access to insert information into the header code for each page on an individual level. That's what you want to do. You don't want to just site-wide throw everything everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Because again, that's what everybody's doing. They put organization schema a lot of times across the whole website.
That's the whole thing, and that's what most of the plugins, that's all they do. So
yeah. So I mean,
once you set schema up, how often do you update or change it?
Okay, this is the thing about schema. It shouldn't change unless you changed, right? So I'll update it if
guess
I
what you're
add
getting at is,
services.
yeah, add services, or let's say new citations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or,
So if you're doing we'll use same as an example, right? If you
yep.
you can go crazy and put every possible same as that ever existed in there and have 1,000 same as's on there, right? Or you could go and just put the top 20. But let's
that's
say
what I
that
would suggest.
yeah. So if you put the top 20 and now all of a sudden you get a Wikipedia page, let's just say, you're going to want to put that as your same as. So I would go update it then. If I get some new citation on some low budget website that just happened to be a local citation, I probably wouldn't take the effort to go update my blueprint across all the pages for that.
Just for that little thing. It's
just
not
for
gonna
that
make
little
that big
thing.
of a deal.
Right. So there is still some art to this. You got to kind of pick your battles in a way. You don't want to update it every time you get a new citation, right? Or you'd be updating it every single day or whatever you're doing.
You wouldn't have a life.
Yeah. So honestly, when you're doing, and this kind of circles back to semantic web, the things on the web about your business shouldn't change. And when they do change, it's actually very difficult to change it in Google's database.
Yeah.
Because if you notice,
when you make your citations, you need to get your username and password. You have to have that stuff and keep it, because God forbid you change your address, change your phone number, change your website, any of that crap. You got to go update all that crap.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
And for those that have been around long enough, and if you have a business who has hundreds of citations across like Yelp and all these different places, let's say, and you go to try to change their phone number in Google My Business, you're probably not going to be able to change it.
Yep.
You'll change it, and about either that or 2 weeks later, you'll get that little orange box that says your phone number has been updated for you.
Correct.
And eventually,
you haven't changed it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because Google's populated their database.
Yep.
And this is the phone number that is semantically related to Rob. And all of a sudden, if only one is updated and all other 200 still say the other, who are they going to trust? Google's kicking that one out.
That's one of the reasons why I tell people whenever they're doing, for instance, trying to get a GMB set up, is I actually tell them to do citations first before doing a GMB. And everybody else, for what I've seen, teaches, no, just go ahead and go get a GMB, no problem, then do your citations. Yeah, well, then when that happens and you're sitting in verification for months down the road because there's no citations, nothing proving you're real, then they want to come cry. But it's like, if you do the citations first, you get all the data points, data aggregators out there, then Google goes, okay, this is who, Rob is. They know exactly who you are because all the data points are out there. But same case scenario, if you go changing shit and you haven't updated all the data points that Google has, they're not going to acknowledge it. They'll acknowledge it, you'll put it in, and then the orange box happens, and then it changes right back to what it was before.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you, this is a funny one, right? It's a little bit related. But so one of my lead gen sites, I built the brand so strong that, and it's at a fake address, whole nine, right? Someone left a review that this is a fake business, fake address, 1-star review, all kinds of stuff on it, right? I just ignored it. I didn't reply, I didn't nothing. Google removed the review because my entity was so strong on the web that it believed my entity and everything around it more than this Google reviewer who obviously, now granted, it could have been a fake person.
That happen, yeah.
But the reviewer's review was removed without me doing anything, because over time, Google's like, well, wait a minute, we have all these other data points saying this place is existing. And we got this one angry person saying, oh, no, it's not here. And they kick that review out without doing anything. So that's the power that can work for you. But if you get all your stuff over here messed up online and try to fix this, good luck. You got to fix it all.
Chase Rayner in the house.
So.
Hey, what's up, Chase?
You look a little pale in your picture there, brother.
You just done about what I'm thinking about doing. Just do a silhouette of me so no one can find out who I actually am, and then report my freaking Facebook. Let's see here. What else we got? Okay, and then we got Kevin again. How can you relate service area base using no fixed address Only geo and perhaps a postcode.
So how can I do service area that I work on?
Yeah,
So,
sob area business. Yeah.
yeah. So you just don't put in there your location, but your service area. And I have a whole in one of the templates. There's one where I pimp out the location area. You can actually add. Most people do a geo shape or a geolocation, and they say so many radiuses around this Latin law, and that's what a lot of them do. I've noticed. But you can actually stack your service location. So I'll put in there my area served. I'll put in there the zip codes. I'll put in there the city names. I'll put the URLs to the Google map of each city. I'll put the Wikipedia URLs to each city that I service, all buried into the service area. So when I'm doing that, I'm saying, versus just saying this business is located at this latitude and longitude and has a 20-mile circle, right? Or this business services this city. I'm going to say this business services these 4 area codes, these 4 cities. These 4 cities are, so this city has this Google map URL. So I put in the actual Google map URL, and I put in the Wikipedia page for that. So now I'm starting to relate my business with the Wikipedia node of the city I service, right? And then in your service area, like the services you provide, you can reference that I know about the Wikipedia article for pest control. So now you're starting to relate so we'll use the pest control example. So now you're telling in the one schema thing, you're saying this business does pest control, which is this Wikipedia thing, and it services at this city. And here's the Wikipedia page of the city they service. So now you're starting to even interlink other very trusted nodes on the web with yours, semantically relating them. I mean, that's how you do that. But there's a whole, I even show you how you can reference in your service area too, because service area can be one of those, it's hard to copy
you get
from
into that
template
in the course as well.
Yeah. Okay. So like on all mine, and I think I might have did on the pest control one. I don't know if I'm. Yeah, I don't have it on that example, but you can put, so service area, and you can actually reference the node that is then in your local business, and it'll pull it in there for you for this service is done at all this service area. And it replicates it out across the whole thing. So the power of node referencing and blueprinting, it's going to blow your mind once people actually get in there and start doing it. I mean,
so where do they go if they want to get the course, and when does it start, and all the details, all the juiciness?
They can sign up now.
Okay.
I don't want to give them I just want you to send out your URL, because they got to go through URL to get the bonus. I can get that. Let me go find that.
Yeah, I'll drop that in the.
If you can drop your link. If not, I can pull it up off screen here.
Yeah, I got it. I'm going to drop it in the chat, and then I'll also drop it into, there you go. Dropped it into the chat, and then I'll also post it on YouTube. I'll post it on my page, and I send it out to my email list and everywhere else too. So.
You can tell I never use StreamYard. I just now saw where there's comments.
Yeah.
I'm like, where's he finding all these comments? Dang it. And I'm like, oh, right here.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Chase even asked me the other day, he said, how did you schedule StreamYard to go across? Because it literally puts, hey, Bill's going live tomorrow with Rob or whoever. And I said, yeah, it's inside StreamYard. You just put destinations. I felt wonderful. It's like, because Chase teaches me so much shit about automation. I'm like, Jedi Master, please teach me.
Yeah.
If I actually get to teach one of y'all something, I'm like, what?
Well, see, that's what's, and it sounds silly, right? But it's those little bitty things like that you can pick up in a course.
Yeah.
Where we were talking about paper lead courses, they're pretty much all regurgitated crap, right? Yeah. Even if you haven't even, like, I've never taken someone else's course, so I can't regurgitate what they taught. But at the end of the day, 85 to 90% of how to do stuff is going to be the same. So it's always going to seem regurgitated. It's like when people say, well, I mean, how do you get unique content about plumbing? You pretty much run out of unique content at some point when you talk about.
Imagine doing, for us, we do 250 rank and rents a month, and some of them are, let's say, plumbers. 4 or 5 of them are plumbers, and we got to write content for every fucking one of them.
Oh, I know.
It's like, how do you write different content for every one of them? It's like I have to literally reword the same freaking content and get it to pass plagiarism and make sure it passes SEO shit.
Yeah. Well, if you're doing local stuff, and they're not in the same city, it's not as big a deal to have the duplicate stuff. I've got sites that are duplicated like crazy, but
I tell them really it's not duplicated. Duplicate content is a myth, in my opinion. Duplicate content's when you take the same text on your website and try to reword it onto your website.
Yeah, and there's actually not a duplicate content penalty. If you go into, you can see it happen. And I may even mention it in the course just in passing in the paper lead course, because I have a section about letting data drive your decisions. And I think in one of the ones I go through, I'm going by memory here, but you can look in Search Console, and I'll use an example. So let's say I'm ranking for pest control, and if my home page and my pest control page are both ranking, you'll see Google at times split testing them. You'll see it when your impressions for the same word is equal across 2 pages. That's basically Google split testing them, and then slowly they'll decide which one to show, and they'll de-index the other, not show it in the visible index, and then one of them will win. And sometimes it's not the one you want, and it's just because the content's so similar that they pick one.
That's duplicate content is not where you have an article or blog across multiple websites.
That's what press releases are.
Yeah, that's what press releases are. If that was the case, news articles wouldn't rank, etc. It's where it's on the same page, and then not only do you got duplicate content, then you can have cannibalization, and other SEO issues. But Kevin,
that's what I look at as
Kevin said one thing: how, if any way, can you stop people from stealing your schema? I can tell you one way. Don't write good schema.
Yeah. There's no way. I mean,
you're not going to, if you wrote good schema, of course someone's going to steal it.
Yeah. People can steal your stuff all the time. I mean, there's ways to hide stuff if you really want to get blackguarded, and you can put in there where you're tracking IPs that come to your thing and only show schema to the bot and on and on and on and on. But it's not worth the effort, I guess is what I'm getting at.
To me, what happens is, because I've had the same thing, for instance, when I do location pages, I put things to do, places to go, actual images from hot links and stuff inside of them. I do geo pages different than everybody else.
Yeah.
But what happens, I've had people say, well, why don't you use the CSS feature and shove the code off the page so you don't see it and it don't look a certain way? And I tell them, say, well, for me, and I'm black hat, so I go, for me, even doing black hat, I go, that would kind of look suspicious. If I was Google, I'd be like, why is this person hiding some text? And it might get some unwanted attention. Therefore, I just don't do it at all.
Okay, so let me I'm gonna give you guys a different mindset from a data analytical reverse engineering guy. If you try to hide something on your website from me, by hiding it off the screen, like I'm gonna right click view source. Like I don't even look at people's websites. I immediately go right click view source and I read your code. And if I find code where it says hide this div or put this over off the page so they can't visually see it, effectively what you're doing is you're telling if we call it black, I don't even believe in hats, but you're telling someone who is looking exactly what you don't want them to find by trying to hide it. Yep. Because if you took the time to write code to hide something, I know that's exactly what you're doing different that you think works. So now I'm going to really hone in on that. Versus if you just hide in plain sight.
You'll go in and pull it. And then if you go in and pull it, then it's like, okay, let me test it and see if this is actually moving the needle. When you find out it's actually moving the needle, then you're going to start using it. It's like, I mean, put everything out there. So.
I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, I don't know if I said it on the call or just when we were talking, I'm in the mindset that it's a pretty big world out there. And if you're worried about one guy stealing your schema, then that's kind of the scarcity mindset. Yeah. And I just don't have that. Like if I was worried about that, I wouldn't be teaching everybody how to actually write schema like I write it. Like
I've had this same issue. People are like, why do you teach everybody everything you know and all these quote unquote secrets? It's like, for me, I think if I teach people, I'll get more clients. I'll get more sales. I mean, I just know there's enough people out there to actually get clients, get sales. It's not scarce. You know, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
a matter of, even if I told someone exactly how to do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and give them the entire blueprint, 90% of them aren't going to do it.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
At
So even the
least,
people that you're worried about stealing it, like 90%, like I said before, imperfect action beats perfect inaction
perfect action.
every time. And most of the world sits in the perfect inaction. They always have a great plan that's going to be perfect. They just never execute it. And that's just the truth. So I never worry about somebody stealing this or stealing that.
You ever listen to Tony Robbins? That sounds a lot like him.
I have some, yeah.
I love his stuff. One of the things he talks about is imperfect action is better than no action. And most people, you know, fail to act.
Yeah.
Therefore, they've never made a decision.
Yep.
You know, so, but yeah, and you'd rather actually do something, make a mistake, and be able to go, okay, I didn't get the results that I wanted from that. Let me change it. You know, so. But
yeah,
listen,
I call it failing forward.
That's awesome. So it's been great having you on. I would love to have you on some more and talk some more, let's say, about some other things that you've done with the G stacks and stuff, if you're up for any of that. So, but for now, I'll talk to you soon, and we'll have you back on another time and some stuff. Maybe I'll talk to you some more about the rank and rent, because I know my rank and rent guys are, once they actually wake up,
yeah,
you know, or see this, they'll be asking some questions. So I'll probably post this in my rank and rent group, because it's a private group too. So
yeah,
but
and that's like I said, I'm just throwing that in free with the schema stuff because they go good together.
yeah.
Basically, that whole rank and rent, I added the schema portion after the fact, because when I first started, I didn't even know what schema was, right?
Yeah.
So I added it to there, but I just threw that in there because there's so many out there. Like I said, at the end of the day, I'm wanting to help whoever the best I can. And with schema, and then if I can throw in this free course just to help them increase their ability to write advanced schema, and they pick up a few nuggets in the paper lead that maybe they didn't get somewhere else, great. Because at the end of the day, that's just helping raise the whole ship, I guess.
Yep, I agree.
So,
all right. Good having you. Good talking to you. If y'all have any more questions, drop them in on the chat. Obviously can't chat now, but once I post it, I'll post it in the back end of the group and everything else. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers. I'll talk to you soon, Rob.
see ya. It's nice to meet you.